This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and yet again, Smackdown time. Yet again, the Dell XPS 13, the 2015 edition. No, we haven't smacked it down with the toaster oven yet, but soon it's coming, I promise you. Anyway, this time we're smacking it against the new MacBook. This is a 12-inch MacBook with the Retina display, and if you're talking about similar configured in some ways, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD, and a high-resolution display, you're looking at $12.99 either way. Both of these are some of the most compact laptops in the business for the higher-end kind of chic, nice-looking laptop. We can compare them now. So here it is, dueling Ultrabooks right here. And it's pretty impressive because we praised the Dell XPS 13, the 2015 edition, for taking a 13.3-inch laptop and fitting it into a size that's almost around 11.6-inch laptop size or Ultrabook size. So Apple, they make a 12-inch MacBook that takes a 12-inch machine, and obviously it's even smaller than this, approximately 11.6-inch footprint. So what is this? Something just bigger than the iPad Air kind of footprint. Both of these are for those of you who want something super duper portable. Obviously, there are plenty of Ultrabooks on the market now with 13.3-inch screens. There's the Surface Pro 3, which we already smacked down with the MacBook. For those of you who are into 12 inches, not a very populated category there, but first and foremost, do you want Windows or do you want Mac OS? Yes, the Mac can run Windows. You can put Boot Camp on here, you can dual boot, you can run Parallels. Parallels in some ways is sometimes a better solution. But if you want to run Windows 80% of the time, 90% of the time, all the time, I really do suggest always that you get a Windows laptop. Why? You're going to get better drivers. Apple puts out just okay drivers because it's not their business to sell Windows machines, is it? And you'll get more frequent driver updates if you buy something that is intended to run Windows. So there you have it. Some reasons there, you get better battery life, all that sort of thing. Just worth saying. Now, as we open them up, you can see that one of the reasons this is a good comparison is both of these are traditional laptops. They are not flippy, multimodal, two-in-one, anything like that. They're for those of you who are looking for a compact, straight laptop design. Which is better looking, that's up to you. I think most people, even if you got a grudge against Apple, are going to say, well, the MacBook is even prettier. For how much that counts. The Dell is a nice enough looking machine. It's a little Spartan in its design. When the Dell starts to look gorgeous is actually when you open it up and look at it front on, and most of that is because of the near bezel-less display. Just scant millimeters separates the edge of the display. In fact, it's so small it can almost be hard to pull charms out or do the multitasking gesture, but it's phenomenal looking, right? It's like a high-end HD TV kind of look there. And inside, I like carbon fiber. Dell's been doing that for a while, and here it is. So we have the carbon fiber on top of metal casing there. Oversized trackpad, one of the better trackpads in the world of Windows. I know some of you are divided on that. I think a lot of the problem is with this trackpad, it does pick up fingerprint oil, and once it does, it starts to become less predictable and less properly responsive. So use a little damp cloth to clean that up, a little soft soap if you need to get rid of the fingerprint oil, and it'll be good. You also have a nice, normal, traditional keyboard. Now, one of the things we said about the keyboard was it's a great backlit keyboard. It's very tactile. It has shaped keys that are nice, easy to keep your fingers where they should be, but there's not a whole lot of travel here. And you know, Ultrabooks tend not to have a lot because they're so darn skinny. Now, if we take a look at our MacBook, that redefines no travel in a way. This is Apple's super duper special keyboard here with the butterfly key mechanism underneath and dome stainless steel keys. It looks kind of weird, doesn't it? You can obviously there's not going to be much travel here. It does move. It's not like the Dell XPS 11 that had a capacitive touch kind of keyboard, but it feels weird. It also feels very clicky and responsive. You can feel the switch underneath each key, which is very nice. So this one is also backlit. This is going to feel less normal, certainly, but I find that I actually type on it very well. So there it is. Psychologically, you're probably going to like the Dell keyboard better because it feels more normal, but in terms of typing speed, I suspect that you're going to type equally well on either of these. Obviously, we have the usual lovely Mac trackpad that works great under OS X Yosemite, and it's the Force Touch one, so even the upper corners click. It actually works very nicely. It's a really awesome trackpad. Now displays. Here's where things get a little bit more complicated, a little bit more interesting. Both of these have glossy displays. As you can see, there's a little bit more glare on the Dell display. I don't think that's super duper important. I mean, glossy is glossy. They're all going to have some glare here, but With the Mac, you get that very interesting resolution, 2304 by 1440. It's a Retina display. It's IPS, has better than 100% sRGB color gamut. Here we have sharp IGZO display. It's available in 1920 by 1080 non-touch, 13.3 inches, or 3200 by 1800 touch. So you got both choices there. For the $1299 model of the Dell, you're going to get that 3200 by 1800 display. So even more pixels here, but be careful what you ask for. The challenge right now still is with Windows scaling. If we're in the Metro live tile environment, scaling is handled very nicely and everything is always very readable. So here we have the Microsoft News app right here. Very beautiful, very readable. If we want to take a look at an article, right, all that stuff is very easy to see. So that's cool. It's only on the desktop side of the things where sometimes things can be kind of tiny. So we have Windows scaling there. To help with that, it depends if the application respects it or not. Famously, Adobe applications can be a little cranky. They do have a 200% UI zoom option now for Photoshop CC, the Cloud CC applications, not the older versions though, sorry. Mac OS handles scaling much better. Things are pretty readable. You don't end up with tiny dialogues, all that sort of thing. Anyway, both of these are very high resolution. Me, if I didn't want touch, I would lean towards the 1920 by 1080. Save yourself some money for the Dell, because that's a perfectly great resolution for this. Everything is readable, even at 100%, no scaling, in other words, applied. Things are a little bit small, but pretty darn good. Anyway, if you do want touch, and if touch is important to you, by the way, well, it's going to be the Dell, because Mac OS doesn't do touch. The Dell also has very good color gamut. It's a bright display. One of the things people do complain about is there is a overarching brightness control in firmware. So if you're in a really dim room, you can't drive it to that eye-searing 350 nits. But then again, I generally don't want to either. My poor eyes. Ow. If you do go with the 1920 by 1080 base model, that has 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gig SSD, $899. The base model for your Mac is 1.1 gigahertz, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD. That starts at $1299. There is no lower end model. An important difference here, this fella has a full Intel Core i5 CPU. You can also get with the Core i7 if you want, so that's full computing power. The base clock speed on that Core i5 is 2.2 gigahertz. Well, so for our Mac right here, what we have is a base clock speed of 1.1 gigahertz, or you can get it with 1.2 gigahertz if you go for the $1,600 model. There's even a 1.3 gigahertz option, Core M, lower power CPU, turbo boost to 2.4 gigahertz. So the base clock rate for your Core i5 full ULV CPU in here is going to be just about where this goes with turbo boost. And turbo boost is something that happens in very short bursts to try to take care of some demanding processing speeds, and then it drops back down to its nominal clock speed. Intel HD 5300 graphics versus 5500 graphics in the Dell. So faster graphics in the Dell, which gets to the whole, is this going to be your main machine or something portable? If you just want to take this on the road with you and you want the lightest possible but usable, nice screen, great keyboard, really good speakers, then the 12-inch MacBook is fantastic. But as my main machine, I would really want something more powerful. If you're doing a lot of multitasking, if you're plugging in external high-resolution monitors, more on that later, then the Dell XPS 13 really has a lot more processing power, significantly more in terms of benchmarks. You'll see it in the numbers there, but what really counts is when you're using it. Now, with the MacBook, it's just fine if you're doing Word, Excel, doing your email, watching some streaming video, that sort of thing. It's for those of you who try to juggle a whole lot of heavy applications at once, where you might notice the processor starting to hiccup some. Next important thing is ports, or lack thereof. The Dell XPS, of course, is a normal Ultrabook, so you have plenty of ports. Here we have mini display port, we have USB 3.0 ports, the usual headphone jack. Another USB 3.0 port there, an SD card slot, full-size SD card slot, and the MacBook famously has one USB-C port, and it has a 3.5 millimeter combo audio jack. So here's your one multi-purpose port on the Mac. Also, it handles charging the laptop. So if you want to charge it while using USB peripherals, you're going to have to get a splitter as well. Apple has a $79 adapter that gives you display out, USB out, and charging in. So there's yet some more money you have to spend. If you just need a USB normal adapter from USB C to regular USB. That one's going to cost you 19 bucks from Apple. Third parties will sell it for less. Anyway, obviously a lot less ports here, and that gets back to the whole main machine thing. If it's going to be your main machine, you probably want more ports. You're probably going to need it so you can plug in those peripherals, your SD card, all that sort of thing. Photography on the go. This would be great because it's so portable and has such a lovely display. But the challenge is there's not even an SD card reader. And gosh, I haven't carried a standalone external SD card reader in a while, but you're going to have to do that plus get a USB-C to USB adapter just so you can use that. Alright, so how about video experience? Obviously you're getting a little bit bigger screen here, 1.3 inches diagonally larger. As small as it might seem thanks to the almost bezel-less design here. Both of these have speakers that really punch above their weight. I have to say the 12-inch MacBook really floored me for such a teeny little Mac. It makes a lot of noise. Dell XPS likewise, boy, good audio. So both of these are 50% volume, and we'll play the Dell first. And it's one of the big phones of the year. It's the HTC One M9. No, I'm not going to make jokes about how it's the M8. We're just rerunning. Sounds good. Looks great. Both of these really have lovely displays. And the video is playing at 1080p, by the way. And our Mac. It's the HTC One M9. No, I'm not going to make jokes about how it's the M8. We're just rerunning the same review. There are improvements here. It's still a lovely looking phone. So they both sound very good. They both look very good. The Mac has a little bit more bass to it, surprisingly for the little guy, right? It sounds a little bit more heavy on the bass. The Dell sounds a little bit more high on the treble. Overall, they're both very good speakers, and it kind of depends on which you prefer. And of course, with either of these, you can use Bluetooth headphones or wired headphones if you want. Speaking of Bluetooth, they both have Bluetooth 4.0 and dual band Wi-Fi 802.11 AC for fastest possible wireless communications. If you want 3G, 4G, you're going to have to get a USB external dongle or modem adapter or use the hotspot on your phone to get that. So how about the webcam? Well, both of these are at something of a disadvantage. The Dell has a 720p chin cam. It's down here. Not the most flattering location, but it's 720p. It's kind of average as laptops go. The Mac has it in an absolutely normal location. You can use it for Skype or FaceTime. 480p. I think Apple found that they couldn't get the performance they wanted going at a higher resolution, so it's 480p. So it won't be your most stellar, sharp-looking video. It's not terrible either, but you know, it's 480p. When it comes to battery life, well, with the Dell, for those of you who haven't watched our video review or read our written review, you should, but you'll know that the 1080p non-touch version has much longer runtime than does the touch version. We average about 10, sometimes 11 hours even on the non-touch 1080p version. The 3200 by 1800 QHD model with touch, that one's more like 8 hours, so more like your average Windows laptop. If you're pushing it hard, you know, call it 7. If you're doing very light work and have the brightness turned down, you go to 8.5. Now the Mac, Apple claims 9 hours, and Apple's usually pretty accurate about what they claim, and indeed it does average us 9 hours in a mix of use. Word processing, email, streaming some video, editing a few photos. If you're going to be playing games on it, if you're going to be seriously trying to edit video, which this is not designed to do day in and day out, you're going to have shorter battery life. For those of you who do want to edit 1080p video frequently, a lot, not just a hobby, not just editing your cell phone's footage once in a while, really the CPU, and this is more important. This has a fan. It's a normal Core i5. This is fanless. Fan on the Dell really doesn't ramp up a lot. If you're charging it while doing something processor intensive, you'll hear it, but it's nothing serious. Doesn't get burning hot on the bottom, neither does the Mac. Both of these have the battery nominally sealed inside. Macs are typically not really things that you can service yourself, and you know, you've got a bunch of pentalobe screws here. You can remove the base, but you've got stacked layered battery in here. Everything is soldered on board, so you really can't upgrade anything on it. With our Dell, the RAM is soldered on board. You can remove the SSD drive and upgrade if you want. You can remove the wireless card if you wish to do it. And the battery, once you open it up, is a kind of normal, you know, if you had to do it yourself, unscrew all the screws, take it out, you could replace it yourself. So there it is, the 12-inch MacBook, the Dell XPS 13. Obviously, if you need something today, as of this filming here at the end of April 2015, it's going to be the XPS 13 because the wait times on this guy are 4 to 6 weeks right now for the Apple. You might find one in stores pretty soon, though, at Apple stores anyway. That aside, and OS preference aside, you know where I stand on that one. If you want Mac OS, get a Mac. If you want Windows, get a Windows machine. Arguably better looking, definitely more portable, smaller, just 2 pounds. Of course, the screen's a little smaller too, and you're giving up horsepower. If it's going to be your main machine, like I said, it should be the Dell XPS 13. Full Core i5 powered here, faster computational speed, something if you need to last 4 years, say through all of college or something like that, it's got the oomph. This is a great secondary machine. If you've already got a desktop or a laptop that's capable, you just want the most portable, elegant thing you can get with a fantastic display and good speakers, well, that's your MacBook. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to watch our video reviews of each of these, read our written reviews on mobiletechreview.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.